Yuudo was a loser high school student who couldn't even confess to his cute childhood friend. However, things change when he got transported into another world and become the strongest leader by using battle tactics from Google searches. On a full moon night, a beautiful girl is humming a song after bathing in the lake. Meanwhile, a boy is using his phone like, "Come on, there is a freaking girl in front of you." The boy is reading about phalanx, a technique from ancient Greece. Suddenly, the girl sneaks up from behind and hugs him. The woman tells the boy to take some rest as he has a battle tomorrow. The very next day, things get wild with a war kicking off just like that. Yuudo turns out to be the big boss of the Wolf Kingdom. They're totally nailing it because they've got this old school strategy from Alexander the Great up their sleeve. As the enemy starts to look like they're losing it, Yuudo gets his crew to hoist their flag and they go for a sneak attack. However, an arrow flies straight at Yuudo, but Felicia is on it and snatches the arrow right out of the air. This sneaky attack is from someone called Einherjar from the Horn clan. Arrows keep raining down on them, but Yuudo and his squad keep their cool. Felicia then whips out her whip and starts blocking those arrows like a pro, using it to strike back at the enemies. Eventually, she saves the day, keeping them safe from the barrage. Yuudo is kind of stressing about Sigrun, who's out there taking on the enemy head-on. However, Felicia tells Yuudo to not worry about Sigrun because she is strong enough to take care of it. True enough, Sigrun, who's decked out in this super tough armor and is known as the strongest wolf, wipes the floor with the Horn clan without breaking a sweat. After the dust settles, Sigrun comes over to check on Yuudo and Felicia. Yuudo plays it cool, saying he's all good because he didn't really get his hands dirty in the fight. Sigrun's also in top shape. Not even a scratch on her, even though she was right in the thick of it. Later on, back at their tent, Yuudo gets everyone together for this big meeting about the Oath of the Chalice. Turns out, every time Yuudo wins against someone, he gives them a choice to join his squad as either his kids or siblings. It's like his way of building a family with every victory. Linnea, who's the leader of the Horn clan, isn't keen on bowing down to the Wolf clan, so she clearly refuses to become Yuudo's daughter. Yuudo isn't one to give up easily, so he throws another idea at her, suggesting to become his sister, and then he drops a heavy hint: if she doesn't agree to this chalice deal, her city might end up in ruins, just like the cities before did. In reality, Yuudo's just bluffing to push Linnea into a corner because he's not really into wrecking places and causing more fights. With no real options left, Linnea agrees and chooses to become his sister and takes Yuudo up on his offer. When all the fighting's done and dusted, Yuudo and his crew head back to their own turf. The people there are super excited to see him, throwing a big welcome party. Plus, Yuudo's not coming back empty-handed. He's bringing home a big win for the Wolf clan. It's like a victory lap with the whole city cheering for them. A moment later, Yuudo and Felicia are hanging out when two of the clan's big shots come over to give their blessings, but Yuudo's got to split because he's in a rush. The elders think he's being rude, but Felicia smooths things over so Yuudo can bounce. He scoots off to a room to juice up his phone with some solar power because, they're in the Bronze Age and there's no regular electricity. Yuudo then calls Mizuki, who is his real sister from his own world. She's checking in on him, and he tells her he's all good. She wonders if he's found a way back yet. He hasn't, but he promises her he'll make it home. Meanwhile, Felicia's peeping from around the corner looking all bummed out. Later, Yuudo goes to sleep, ready to call it a day. The following day, Yuudo is woken up by Felicia and Sigrun popping into his room. Felicia has prepared some breakfast for him, and she revealed that she used this cool rotary corn thing Yuudo invented to help them make bread. Sigrun's all impressed, saying Yuudo's got this special know-how for creating all sorts of handy gadgets. Suddenly, Felicia notices Yuudo's little guy standing, and she is ready to give Yuudo something so precious that you guys can only dream about it. However, that good-for-nothing loser blushes and runs away. Later, while munching on his breakfast, Yuudo chats with the Horn clan folks about this Oath of the Chalice deal. He's also brainstorming about making more iron spears to beef up their arsenal. After breakfast, Yuudo and Felicia head over to the forge to catch up with Ingrid. Ingrid greets Yuudo in a super chill way, ditching the formalities. Felicia scolds her and tells her to show some respect, but when Ingrid tries to switch to a formal tone, it just doesn't click for her. Yuudo and Felicia can't help but laugh at the situation. Yuudo gets down to business and tells Ingrid that he's now the big brother to the Horn clan's head honcho, making them family. That means they'll all be using the same kind of weapons. He gives Ingrid the heads up that she's gotta crank out a bunch of weapons for their new extended clan family. The big moment arrives, and they start this special Chalice of Allegiance ritual. Holy Priest Alexander leads the whole thing in the name of the Divine Emperor. And guess what? Linnea is now officially part of the Wolf clan. This ritual is supposed to unite the clan, get rid of any opposition, and bring peace. After the ritual, Linnea asks Yuudo to treat her clan just like he treats the Wolf clan. She sees him as her brother now, and he's all about granting her wish because he's just that kind-hearted. Just then, Felicia shows up with some news. They got a message from Fort Horn on the border. Yuuto gathers up the clan elders and spills the beans about the message. Turns out, the Hoof clan, one of the biggest clans in the West, is invading Horn clan territory with a whole army of about 10,000 soldiers. Yuuto tells the elders that they're gonna help the Horn clan stand strong against the Hoof clan, but some of the elders object to his decision. One of them even suggests making the Horn clan their slaves instead of helping them. Well, that really ticks Yuuto off. He slams his fist on the table and gives the elders a piece of his mind. He reminds them about the oath they just took and how it's important to uphold the clan's reputation. As the patriarch of the Wolf clan, he makes a bold decision. He's going to join forces with the Horn clan and fight against their common enemy. In the dead of night, the leader of the Hoof clan is busy making plans to take on the Horn kingdom. Suddenly, there's a bunch of noise. He peeks out to see what's going on and is totally shocked to find the Wolf clan right there in the mix. And there's Sigrun, leading the charge and taking down enemy after enemy. The Hoof clan's big boss hadn't seen this coming. He didn't think the Wolf clan would join the fight, especially since they only had horse riders in their army. However, he's quick to rally his troops. He tells them to stay cool and that they'll definitely win if they keep their heads. After Sigrun finishes her fierce attack, she tells her soldiers to pull back. The patriarch is boiling over in the enemy ranks. They realize they've been tricked big time. And just like that, the scene shifts over to the Horn clan's side of things. Linnea gets the news that Sigrun has totally tricked the Hoof clan, and she can't help but feel a wave of relief wash over her. Sigrun's not just famous for being tough, she's also the one who beat Einherjar and took down the patriarch. Thinking about how awesome Sigrun is, Linnea remembers the time Yuuto stood up for the Horn clan in front of all the Wolf clan's big shots. He didn't even hesitate to offer help to the Horn clan in their scrap with the Hoof clan. Later on, Linnea catches up with Felicia and Yuuto, and after a bit of chit-chat, they get down to business, talking about the battles they're up against. Yuuto, being the leader he is, tells his warriors to grab some grub and even lets them sip some wine before the big fight. Linnea's pretty taken aback by this, but Yuuto explains, kind of like that famous guy Sun Tzu said, that you can't expect to fight your best if you're all worn out and your stomach's growling. The scene then cuts over to the battlefield, where Ungvi is giving props to the Wolf clan for being strong. However, he's also not taking them seriously enough. In his mind, the Hoof clan's muscle is way bigger than the Wolf clan's. Linnea is thinking back to this one time when she was in a meeting with Yuuto. Yuuto was pretty sure that their enemies would spot the weak spot in Felon's defense and would probably try to hit them from the side. Because of that, the Horn clan needed to be super strong and hold their ground. Yuuto also mentioned he had a sneaky plan ready to deal with this. The battle went down just like Yuuto thought it would, but Linnea and her soldiers couldn't believe their eyes when they saw the enemy heading straight for them. Leading the charge was the big boss of the Hoof clan. This guy who's nicknamed the Monster because he's so fierce. Linnea, trying to be the best leader she can, starts cheering on her troops. She's shouting out to them from a distance, telling them to stay strong and not to give up, even with the monster coming at them. Linnea and her crew are in the thick of it, watching the Hoof clan's big guy just bulldozing through everyone in his path. It's pretty intense, but then Patriarch gets snagged in the trap that Yuuto set up. That's Yuuto's cue to send in Sigrun, and she doesn't waste a second. Sigrun hollers at her magic team to keep their eyes on the Patriarch. When they finally face off, Sigrun and the Patriarch start going at it, trading blows with their spears. It's a real nail-biter, and for a second, it looks like the Patriarch has the upper hand when Sigrun gets knocked off her horse. The Patriarch starts to brag, thinking he's got this in the bag and he's about to finish Sigrun off. However, Sigrun isn't out of the fight yet. With a slick move, she slices his weapon in half with her sword. And just like that, the tables turn. As the Patriarch is taking his last breaths, he's curious about Sigrun's sword. Sigrun explains that her sword comes all the way from Japan. The Patriarch, even though he's on his way out, can't help but express how he's kind of honored to be taken down by such a fierce fighter like Sigrun. Over on the other side of the battlefield, Sigrun's feeling pretty good about herself. She's just gone toe-to-toe with one of the toughest guys around and came out on top. With that win, she proudly announces that the Wolf clan has beaten the Hoof clan. Her soldiers are over the moon with joy, and Linnea is feeling all warm and fuzzy inside, knowing they've snagged the win. After the dust settles from the fight, Linnea's got something big on her mind. She tells Yuuto and the crew that she's thinking about stepping down as the big boss. And get this, she wants to pass the title to Yuuto by tying the knot with him. This idea totally throws Yuuto and everyone else for a loop. Sigrun's not buying it and thinks it's a bad idea, but Yuuto's got a hunch there's more to it and asks Linnea to spill the beans. Linnea lays it all out. She says that being the top dog isn't about who your family is but about what you can do. She believes that the strongest and most capable should be the one calling the shots, not just someone who got the job because of their last name. She's all about merit over inheritance, thinking that's the way to keep things from going downhill. Linnea goes on to share a bit of her backstory. Turns out, she's supposed to be the leader because of her family line. But if this little secret gets out, she could be in hot water and even lose her spot as the chief. She opens up about her dad and how he picked her to lead their clan. It wasn't a smooth ride, though. She faced a bunch of people who didn't think she was right for the job. But she wanted to prove herself and honor the faith her dad had in her. Now, Linnea's got this plan. She figures if she and Yuuto get hitched, her clan will end up with a strong leader, which is what she really wants. But Yuuto, he's not the type to rush into a decision this big. He tells her he's gotta have a sit down with his own clan folks before he can give her an answer. Linnea's okay with waiting. She's all ears for what Yuuto decides, looking forward to hearing what he's got to say after he's had a chance to chat with his people. The next day rolls around, and Felicia is there to help Yuuto get into his uniform. They're gearing up for a big celebration. As they're getting ready, Felicia decides to weigh in on the whole Linnea situation. She's got some thoughts to share. She tells Yuuto that if he decides to marry Linnea, he'd basically have the city in his pocket. That'd be a solid move because it could serve as a springboard for him to climb up to the top spot in Yggdrasil. However, Yuuto's not too keen on the idea. Even though it sounds like a sweet deal for his wolf clan, he's not about to say yes just like that. He's curious, though, why Felicia would even suggest such a thing. That's when Felicia spills the beans. She accidentally overheard him talking on the phone and caught him mentioning his plans to head back to his own world. This threw her for a loop because she's been thinking about what would happen if he left. Felicia's been in a bit of a pickle over this. She's been hoping that Yuuto would stick around. She figures that if he marries Linnea and becomes the big cheese of the Horn clan, he might just stay in their world for good. Yuuto feels bad that he's got her worried. He tells her that she's been his rock for the past 2 years, and it wouldn't be right to just bail on her. He sees her as his most dependable pal. With that, they make a pact. Felicia's going to help Yuuto dodge the whole marriage bullet with Linnea. Yuuto's relieved and hopeful that Felicia's got what it takes to help him out. Meanwhile, there's some shady business going on. An old guy and a red-haired fella are lurking around, watching Yuuto's kingdom with some pretty wicked smiles. The big celebration starts, and Yuuto is right there, showing respect to the spirits of the past. After he's done with that serious stuff, he sits down next to Linnea. They're having a good time, talking and munching on some tasty treats. They seem so close that someone in the crowd gets mixed up and calls them a married couple, which makes Yuuto and Linnea feel super awkward. Just then, like a superhero, Felicia jumps in and cuts through the awkwardness. She's got a sneaky plan to keep Yuuto from being trapped into marriage. Acting all sly, she asks Yuuto to put his arm around her, making it look like they're more than just friends. She even pokes a little fun at Linnea, hoping to throw her off the scent of marriage. Out of nowhere, the respected priest Alexis shows up with Steinthur, who's a big deal in the Lightning clan that's in charge of the northern part. Steinthur seems like he's there to give props to the Wolf clan for winning their battle. However, the folks from the Horn clan are not happy to see him at all. They've had beef with the Lightning clan in the past, and they're not about to let it go. Even though the Horn clan folks are giving him the cold shoulder, Steinthur just laughs at them. This gets under Rasmus' skin and he and his buddies are ready to fight, swords out and everything. However, Alexis steps in real quick and tells him to stop. He reminds everyone that Steinthur is his guest. Since Alexis is a priest from the Asgard Empire, which is a big deal in Yggdrasil, people usually listen to him. Rasmus and his crew are willing to let Steinthur's snarky comments slide because of Alexis. However, Steinthur just can't help himself and pokes fun at them again. Rasmus is getting seriously ticked off now. Like a bolt from the blue, Steinthur shows off some insane moves and is suddenly right next to Rasmus. Everyone's jaws drop at how fast he is. Before anyone can blink, Steinthur busts Rasmus' sword into pieces. Linnea jumps in to drop some knowledge on them. She explains that Steinthur's got this special rune called Mjolnir. It's not your average rune. It's got this heavenly power that can blow stuff up. Moreover, the amazing speed that he is showing off is thanks to another rune he's got. Linnea adds more to the story, saying Steinthur is actually one of the 3 powerful twin tuner warriors known as Einherjar. The moment Steinthur hears about Yuuto, he heads straight for him, but Sigrun steps in to keep him back. Steinthur spots Sigrun and he knows exactly who she is, but he doesn't pay her much attention. Instead, he keeps trying to get closer to Yuuto. Linnea tries to have a chat with Steinthur, but he's not having any of it and just teases her instead. All this while, Yuuto is getting pretty fed up with Steinthur's habit of bugging people. Steinthur catches the look on Yuuto's face and says he's into it, but Yuuto is definitely not entertained by Steinthur's antics. They exchange a few words that are kind of polite but not really friendly, and then Steinthur decides it's time to hit the road. The following day, Felicia tags along with Yuuto as they head out to the bustling market. From a bit away, Christina and Albertina are keeping an eye on them. They belong to this group called the Claw Clan. While at the market, there's this mom and her kid, Ophelia, who are up for trade. Turns out, they're from the northern parts. Yuuto doesn't waste any time. He steps right up to the person selling slaves and makes the purchase. After that, he tells one of the guards to escort the mother and Ophelia over to his chamberlain's place so they can start getting settled in and look after themselves. Right after that, Sigrun visits Yuuto with Christina and Albertina. They show up out of the blue and start chatting with Yuuto and his friends, which leaves everyone pretty surprised. Christina and Albertina kick things off by introducing themselves, and then they jump right into talking about a wedding. They've been sent by their leader with a pretty big question. They want Yuuto to marry into their clan. Yuuto isn't into the idea at all and tells them straight up to just go away, but then Felicia leans over and whispers something to Yuuto. Christina and Albertina seem to catch on to what she's saying. Turns out, they're part of this warrior group called Einherjar, which means Yuuto can't just tell them to leave like that. It looks like they weren't actually there to chat about getting married. Instead, they're interested in making a special promise called the Oath of the Chalice and become like daughters to Yuuto. But Yuuto's still trying to figure out what's up with these two from the Claw clan. Before he even thinks about agreeing to their proposal, he asks the twins to show what they're made of, because earning the chalice from the Wolf clan is a pretty big deal. Later in the evening, Linnea is all tucked in bed and starts having some pretty wild dreams about her and Yuuto. But just as she's deep in dreamland, her guard comes in and wakes her up. He's got news. Yuuto is on his way over for a visit. Then we see Yuuto and Felicia hitting the road with Christina. And now that the twins are tagging along, they're moving way quicker. Yuuto's thinking that the twins have some skills that could be super useful in a fight. After some traveling, they make it to Gimel, which is like the go-to place for grain. This is great news because it means they won't be worrying about food anymore. Yuuto has this cool idea to shake things up with farming. He wants to bring in this Norfolk crop rotation system, which is a smart way to farm. But here's the thing, Gimel used to be under the Horn clan's control, so Yuuto can't just stroll in and tell everyone to change how they farm. Linnea, who was wandering around the city, decided to drop by and have a chat with Yuuto about his answer. But now there's a new problem. The Claw clan also offered Yuuto a marriage proposal. Suddenly, Albertina shows up, followed by Christina, and the twins start arguing, completely caught up in their own little world. Amidst all the chaos, Albertina speaks up and asks about the proposal. Linnea jumps in and claims that the Horn clan is stronger than the Claw clan, suggesting that Yuuto should choose the Horn clan instead. But Yuuto tries to shift the topic to calm down the commotion between the three girls who are fighting over him. The reason why Linnea came to help Yuuto is because he recently took control of Gimel City. It's possible that the townspeople haven't fully accepted the Wolf clan yet. So, Linnea came to lend a hand and help Yuuto talk to the townspeople. Yuuto has this cool farming idea he shares with Linnea. He's excited about making the farms better by changing how they plant stuff. He explains that with the Norfolk method, they plant different crops one after the other, so there's always something growing and the soil stays healthy and makes more food. However, the thing is, the folks in town aren't too sure about trying this new way. So, Linnea decides to take charge. She rounds up all the townspeople and starts explaining how the Norfolk crop rotation works. She's really good at it because, before you know it, a bunch of them are nodding and getting on board with the idea. And Linnea, she's super organized. She's already planned out where each plant should go. She's dividing up the land so everything's got its own spot, which is pretty smart cause it means they'll get the best out of the land. Even with all the excitement about the new farming method, some folks are still worried. They're scared that the crops might not grow and they'll end up with nothing. They tell Yuuto that they'll start working on it by tomorrow if he can promise to look after them in case things go south. Yuuto takes a good, hard look at the farming plan Linnea has put together and gives it the thumbs up. He's on board with it. Now, there's another issue on their plate. Yuuto and his crew have a meeting because they've heard that the Lightning Clan is gearing up for a fight. The word is that the Lightning Clan is stocking up on weapons, ready to take on the Wolf Clan. Christina jumps in and tells Yuuto she wants to sneak into the Lightning Clan to find out more about what they're up to. Yuuto's worried because it sounds risky. But then, Christina has another idea. She wants Albertina to go after Olaf. And just like that, in a blink, Albertina is right behind Olaf with her blade out, ready to make a move. Fortunately, Christina tells Yuuto to chill out because they've got some serious fighting skills. Feeling a bit better about it, Yuuto decides to send the twins on a super secret mission to sneak into the bad guys' land. If they pull it off, they can go ahead with this big deal called the Oath of the Chalice. Then, Yuuto grabs Felicia and Linnea and they head to Olivica River, which is right on the edge of where the Lightning Clan hangs out. Once they get there, Yuuto has a special task for Linnea. He knows she's the only one who can rally the townspeople to build a dam. While they're working on that, Yuuto's back at it with another meeting. This time they're talking about Steinther's army. Yuuto's pretty confident as he thinks there's no way the Wolf Clan is going to lose to the Lightning Clan. But then, the next day, there's some big news. The Lightning Clan's army, with a whopping 80,000 soldiers, is ready to rumble. Turns out, they've got more fighters than the Wolf Clan does. Later at night, Sigrun is bathing in river water where she recalls training the good-for-nothing Yuuto. The plot armor of this guy is pretty thick because he doesn't even know how to fight. Moreover, he is using his phone to win all the wars. The next day, as the sun comes up, both the Wolf Clan and the Lightning Clan show up on the battlefield, ready to throw down. The battle's about to kick off when the Wolf Clan's archers let their arrows fly, taking out a bunch of the Lightning Clan's guys who are right at the front. Even though they're losing some troops, the Lightning Clan keeps pushing forward. That's when Yuuto shouts out to his archers to back up and switch things up to this tight formation called the phalanx. It's like a human wall, super tough to break. As the Lightning Clan soldiers get closer, the Wolf Clan's phalanx goes all out and bam. They hit the enemy hard with their iron weapons. In the middle of all this, Steinther gives his orders. He tells Ving to take charge of the left side of the phalanx, while his big bro handles the right side. Steinther's plan is to charge right down the center and hit them where it hurts. Meanwhile, Sigrun gets a signal from Yuuto, signaling her to gear up for action. Both groups are going at it, full force. Sigrun's doing pretty well, even getting the upper hand on Steinther's right-hand person. But then, out of nowhere, Steinther shows up, and just like that, Sigrun's spear is toast. Steinther doesn't waste any time and starts going after Sigrun with everything he's got. Sigrun quickly realizes she's outmatched. She doesn't think she can beat Steinther, so she signals her team to fall back and get out of there. With Sigrun's squad retreating, Steinther turns into a one-man army and charges at the Wolf Clan's forces. He's knocking them down left and right, just going through them like a storm. After he's done with the Wolf Clan soldiers, Steinther sets his sights on Yuuto. But Yuuto's troops are in that solid phalanx wall again, trying to stop Steinther. Thing is, Steinther is like a force of nature. He just barrels through the formation, taking down anyone in his path. Watching Steinther just plow through his defenses, Yuuto can't help but think that this guy must be super strong, maybe even strong enough to be Zhang Yu in another life. Therefore, Yuuto has to rush over to the battle spot with Scarfear to let his troops know they gotta back off. While he's shouting orders, Steinther comes at him hard, but Yuuto isn't going down easy and blocks the attack. Steinther is super persistent though and goes for another hit, managing to scratch Yuuto's face. Steinther then tries to get Yuuto to throw down in a fight, but Yuuto's not having it. Instead, he yells out to the Lightning Clan's fighters that they're standing on a gold mine of meteoric iron. That's like super valuable stuff that could mean they'd never have to work another day. After dropping that bombshell, Scarfear just walks away, leaving Steinther and his crew to think about the riches right under their feet. So everything goes just like Yuuto figured. Those soldiers get super excited about finding the iron all over the place and totally ignore whatever Steinther tells them to do. Meanwhile, Steinther is just chilling and munching on some grub when his sidekick rushes over to drop the major news that Scarfear has taken out Steinther's big bro. This hits Steinther like a ton of bricks, and he's so upset that he lashes out and boots his helper right in the belly, sending the guy flying. But then Steinther feels bad about his outburst, so he says sorry for the rough kick. Steinther isn't one to sit back, so he gets right on the tail of Yuuto's troops who are trying to cross the river at that moment. But Scarfear isn't about to let Steinther have an easy time. He shows up just in time to get in his way. Steinther quickly picks up on the fact that Scarfear's really good at blocking attacks. While Steinther's busy with that, Scarfear sees his chance and makes a break for the river. Not missing a beat, Steinther tells his own soldiers to get moving and chase after Scarfear across the water. Despite arrows raining down on him, Steinther manages to make it to the other side of the river without a scratch. But he's in for a surprise because Scarfear's buddy Sigrun is waiting for him, along with Felicia and a bunch of others. Now Steinther's in a real pickle, facing off against 7 fierce warriors known as Einherjar. They don't go easy on him, and Steinther ends up getting a real whooping from the group. Meanwhile, the Lightning Clan soldiers aren't having any better luck. They're getting hit hard by a storm of arrows and have nowhere to run. So, here's the deal. Scarfear and his crew know they can't beat Steinther, so their main job is just to keep him busy. They make that clear and then make a swift exit. But guess what? A massive flood hits out of nowhere and turns the river into a huge sea. Turns out, Yuuto had a genius plan up his sleeve to take down someone as tough as Steinther. The raging water from the dam breaking is a key part of his strategy. On the other hand, Steinther is still alive but he's in rough shape. He's badly hurt, plus he's lost his whole army. He realizes he's been defeated and gives props to Yuuto for his brilliant moves. Later that night, Yuuto shares the good news with the girl he met before. He tells her that he won the fight and promises to find a way back home soon. After some days, Yuuto is with Ingrid in the workshop trying to blow into extremely hot soft glass in order to make utensils out of it but fails, so he invites Ingrid to try it. At first she hesitated blowing through the same pipe but doesn't let that opportunity slip. Meanwhile, she is blowing into the hot soft glass. She is having some dreams about her and Yuuto, and somehow she is able to blow perfectly into the glass. Later, a literal bald man calling Yuuta father tells the slave girl from before that from now on she will live with all other girl because Yuuta has taken a liking towards her, which sounds extremely sus to be honest. The slave girl introduces herself as Ophelia, and all other girls accepts her with open arms to that good for nothing guy's harem, and if you think I am jealous of him, you are probably right. After that, Yuuto starts working on dealing with the aftermath of the battle against Steinther. Felicia and the others suggest that Yuuto takes a break from his duties, but he initially refuses. However, they keep insisting, and eventually Yuuto gives in. They all decide to go on a vacation together. While Yuuto is away, he puts the bald man in charge for a few days. The bald man acknowledges that Yuuto's vacation is crucial for the well-being of the Wolf Clan. By taking care of himself and being a strong leader, Yuuto ensures the prosperity of the clan for many years to come. The following day, Yuuto is accompanied by the girls to the hill to a hot spring where he spends some quality time that you guys can only dream about. The girls tease him, and then all the girls insist on washing his back, to which he hesitantly agrees. After their adventure, Sigrun heads over to Ingrid's place to pick up her brand new weapon. As she's getting it, she can't help but think about that time she battled Steinther and ended up losing her old sword. She lets out a big sigh. Ingrid sees this and jumps to the conclusion that Sigrun isn't happy with the weapon she's made, which is like a work of art to Ingrid. Feeling a bit hurt, Ingrid wants to know what's up and insists Sigrun explain herself. She's so upset, she even says she won't make weapons for Sigrun anymore. Sigrun catches on to why Ingrid is upset and clears up the misunderstanding. She shares the story of her lost sword and how it went down with Steinther. Just then, Felicia and Yuuto show up. They're there to get Sigrun's old sword fixed up by Ingrid. Seeing her old sword again brings a smile to Sigrun's face. While they're there, Yuuto and the girls decide to have a chat and enjoy the view of the market from up high. Yuuto's been doing a great job leading the clan, and because of that, the clan's making a lot more money and everyone's doing better. Ophelia comes by to bring them some water, but she accidentally spills it all over Yuuto. But Yuuto doesn't sweat it. He just brushes it off, saying it's no big deal and it won't ruin his day. Ophelia is really grateful to Yuuto. She tells him how much it means to her that he saved her and her mom from being sold as slaves after they lost everything. Yuuto tells her she doesn't have to worry about paying him back and tries to share some sweets with her. Ophelia feels like she can't accept them because they're his, but Yuuto insists and encourages her to try a piece. When she does, she's so moved that she starts crying because she's so happy. Yuuto then asks her to read something written on a sign. Ophelia reads it out loud with no trouble at all. Yuuto is pleased, and as a special treat, he gives her the entire tray of desserts, which honestly looks like crap. Yuuto shares with the girls his new plan. He wants every child to go to school. Felicia is worried because she thinks some families might not have the money for this, but Yuuto explains that the Wolf Clan will cover the costs so that all the kids can learn without paying anything. He then shares some quotes on how learning is really important and how it will help them all in the long run. Going back in time a bit, Yuuto is hanging out by the river with a guy named Lopter, who has blonde hair. Not far from them, Sijin and Felicia are having a blast splashing around in the water. It's pretty clear that Yuuto and Lopter have become good friends after spending a lot of time together. Lopter sort of jokes around with Yuuto, playfully warning him that if he ever makes his sister Felicia upset, he'll have to answer to him. But Yuuto, in a light-hearted way, lets him know that he's already got someone special waiting for him back home, someone he's really into. Later, he finds himself in a pretty important position as the new head of the Wolf Clan. During this time, the other leaders are really thankful to Yuuto's team because they managed to beat the rival Claw Clan. Yuuto, though, doesn't feel totally comfortable with all this praise. He's a bit down on himself, thinking maybe he's not cut out for this big role. Then Steven steps in and surprises everyone by naming Yuuto as his successor. This throws Yuuto for a loop because he's been wanting to return to his own world. Steven's mind is made up, though. He believes Yuuto is the only person strong enough to look after the clan. Yuuto tries to turn down the offer, saying there are others, like his buddy Lopter, who are more deserving of such an honor. This actually gets Lopter pretty worked up. He thinks Yuuto is just pretending to be humble and secretly wants to take the title for himself. Taking on the role of the clan leader was actually Lopter's biggest goal. He had put in a ton of effort to keep Felicia and their people safe. He really wanted the Wolf Clan to be as strong and respected as the Claw and Hoof clans. But when Yuuto was chosen instead of him, it seemed like Lopter's dreams were shattered. Feeling betrayed, Lopter couldn't hold back his anger. He pulled out his sword, ready to attack Yuuto in a fit of rage. But in that critical moment, Steven jumped in to protect Yuuto and got hurt instead. Tragically, Steven's injuries were too severe, and he couldn't survive them. In the chaos, Lopter ran away, unable to face what he had done. With his last few moments, Steven had a final wish for Yuuto. He told him that once Yuuto felt he had done his duty as the clan's leader, and if he ever decided to go back to his own world, he should name Lopter as his successor. After sharing this, Steven passed away. Back in the present, Yuuto is busy on his smartphone, trying to gather intel on the enemy's strength. After he's done with his research, he decides to give Mizuki a call to chat and catch up on various things. In a different place, Lopter is looking at a letter he got from his sister. He realizes right away that the writing isn't hers. It looks like Lopter has a plan brewing in his mind to take back what he thinks should be his by overthrowing Yuuto. At the same time, Yuuto hears some big news. The Panther clan has gone and attacked the Horn clan. Not just that, they've also taken over the city of Mervir. So, Yuuto tells Felicia to hurry up and get their soldiers together because they have to head out to fight. Yuuto and his warriors are getting all geared up for battle. But before they know it, the enemy is already there, launching surprise attacks on them. The Panthers are using sneaky tactics, the same kind Yuuto once used, and it's really getting on his nerves to see his own strategies being used against him. Scarfer isn't wasting any time. He and his fighters start to fight back, shooting arrows over to where the Panthers are. With the Panthers backed into a corner, they decide to back off and run away. But then, out of nowhere, they come back, and this time there are even more of them. They've managed to trap Yuuto and the Wolf clan from all sides. So, in the middle of the fight, Lopter is trying to outsmart Yuuto. Lopter knows Yuuto is always glued to his smartphone for coming up with battle plans. He's pretty sure he can beat Yuuto at his own game this time. Lopter signals to his troops to wipe out the Wolf clan right away. But it turns out they've walked straight into a trap set by Yuuto. When Lopter's guys try to hit the Wolf clan with arrows, it's no use because there are wagons in the way, blocking everything they shoot. And these aren't just ordinary wagons, they're like a huge wall, a barrier fortress. Seeing that Lopter's soldiers are confused and don't know what to do, Yuuto tells his own soldiers to go for it and attack. Sijin, one of Lopter's people, thinks they should back off and get out of there, but Lopter doesn't want to hear it. He believes they still have a shot at breaking through the fortress. But then, Yuuto starts feeling weird, like something's not right. It turns out Sijin has hit him with some kind of magic. She says a spell aimed at Yuuto and suddenly, her soldiers turn into these fierce warriors like they've gone wild. They're berserkers now, which means they're super strong and not afraid of anything. The Panther clan's army finally breaks through the barrier. And that's when Lopter makes it into Yuuto's headquarters. It's been a while, but these two former brothers end up facing each other on the battlefield again. Lopter, who's been wanting to take on Yuuto, steps up ready for a showdown. However, Felicia steps in, trying to stop the fight, but Lopter isn't having it. He nearly goes for her, but Yuuto steps in and their swords start clashing. Now, here's a fun fact. Horses really don't like how camels smell. So, when Sijin shows up with her camels, Lopter's horse just loses it and starts freaking out. With his horse going crazy, Lopter can't fight properly. He figures this isn't going his way, so he decides it's time to pull back and retreat. Yuuto is chilling under this cozy kotatsu, which is like a heated table, and he asks Felicia to come join him and get warm. Ingrid actually built this kotatsu, and it's pretty cool because it's warmed up with coal. Then there's Ophelia, who's heading off to school, but she's not really into it. School's tough for her. It seems like making friends is a real challenge, and the other kids don't want to hang out with her or include her in their games. Yuuto's feeling pretty concerned about Ophelia because it sounds like the other kids aren't treating her right, and it hits close to home for him since he's the one who chose the school for her. He must feel a bit responsible for how things are going for her there. Albertina and Christina came up with a plan to fix the problem. They decide to join the school pretending to be regular students. When they arrive, the teacher makes a big deal about introducing them to everyone. The teacher goes on to share that Albertina and Christina are actually royalty. They're princesses from the powerful Claw clan. Not just that, but the teacher also spills the beans about their special promise to the leader of the Wolf clan. And even with all this attention, Christina and Albertina can't help but bicker a bit while they're being introduced to their new classmate. So, Christina has a chat with Yuuto and gives him the lowdown on the classroom drama. It turns out there's this queen of the class who's been calling the shots, and she's the reason why everyone's been giving Ophelia the cold shoulder. Christina thinks that Yuuto being super friendly with Ophelia on her first day at school is what kicked off the whole mess. The queen got jealous because Yuuto is popular and everyone wanted his attention, but he was all about making Ophelia feel welcome. Yuuto had hoped his friendliness would make Ophelia's school life easier, but it backfired big time. Christina's got a game plan, though. She figures if she can take over as the class queen, she can turn things around and make school a better place for everyone, including Ophelia. Meanwhile, the current queen tries to have her friends over, but they ditch her to hang out with Christina instead. Christina ups the game by inviting everyone to a hot spring hangout. Ophelia is left out at first, but Albertina encourages her to join in. Ophelia, not one to quit, approaches the queen and invites her to come along to the hot springs. The queen isn't too keen on the idea at first and turns her down, but Ophelia doesn't back down and keeps on asking. Eventually, the queen gives in and decides to go with Ophelia. Christina and Albertina catch up with Yuuto to give him the scoop that they've sorted out the trouble Ophelia was having at school. Yuuto starts to think that their mission at the school is pretty much wrapped up, but Christina jumps in to say they're not done yet. Albertina's not too thrilled about sticking around in school. She's had enough, but Christina isn't having it. She insists that Albertina stay because it'll help her learn to write her name by herself. Then, Yuuto decides it's time to figure out a gift he wants to give. He rings up Mizuki for some advice. Mizuki tells him that it's the thought that counts and suggests he should try making something himself. They have to cut their chat short though, cause Yuuto's phone is about to die. After hanging up, Yuuto heads over to the workshop where he's going to try his hand at glass blowing. Ingrid is there and she takes a look at the designs Yuuto has in mind for the glass pieces he wants to create. So, Yuuto's got this idea to whip up some special handmade gifts because Sijin and Felicia's birthdays are just around the corner. He's all excited and wants to get started right away. Ingrid, though, is not exactly over the moon about it. She's kind of bummed because she was looking forward to chilling on her day off, and now she's got to help Yuuto make presents for other girls. It's got her feeling a bit sour and she's not hiding it. Despite being a bit miffed, Ingrid gets to work. Yuuto, being the smooth guy he is, manages to sweet-talk her into a better mood. He points out that hey, at least she gets to hang out with him for the day, just the two of them. While they're working together, Ingrid tries to get a little flirty with Yuuto, but he just doesn't pick up on it. After a while, they finally finish making the gifts. Yuuto's not totally sure if he can call them handmade, since Ingrid did most of the heavy lifting. But Ingrid reassures him, saying that because he came up with the designs and put in his own time and effort, it definitely counts as his work. Then, Yuuto brings up how Ingrid was trying to flirt with him earlier. He tells her she's coming on too strong and that she might want to dial it back and act a bit more demure. Yuuto keeps dishing out this kind of advice, and it's starting to really get on Ingrid's nerves. She gets so ticked off that she ends up socking him one, and Yuuto goes flying across the room. The following morning, Yuuto tries to say hi to Ingrid, but she's not having any of it and just snubs him. Feeling a bit guilty, Yuuto decides to do something nice for her and gives her this cool necklace called a magatama. He actually made it himself, especially as a peace offering to say sorry for the argument they had. Yuuto can tell Ingrid wants to stand out and be unique, so he compliments her straight up, no beating around the bush. Ingrid is so touched by the gesture that she puts on the necklace right then and there, and it's clear it means a lot to her. She's usually pretty tough, but this gift makes her super happy. Meanwhile, in another part of the story, there's this high-ranking priest named Alexis who decides to have a chat with a guy named Lopter. Alexis is all about keeping things in order and says it's the Empire's job to make sure everything runs smoothly. He's not too pleased with the Wolf clan because they're causing a bit of chaos. Sijin jumps into the conversation and points out that the Lightning and Panther clans aren't really connected, and they don't need to get mixed up in any formal promises or oaths involving the chalice. Lopter wants to know what Alexis is proposing, like what's in it for him if he agrees to make a pledge. Alexis offers a deal where they'd be allies on equal footing, and Lopter thinks it over and decides to go for it. Back in the day-to-day world, Mizuki is having a heart-to-heart with her buddy Rui, and they're chatting about Yuuto. Rui's puzzled about why Yuuto would leave a great friend like Mizuki behind, but Mizuki's got a hunch that it's not that Yuuto doesn't want to come back. He just hasn't figured out how to return to where he originally came from. Even though Mizuki and Yuuto aren't an item, Rui can't help but feel a bit anxious for her friend, knowing Yuuto's got a bunch of stunning girls around him. But Mizuki's got faith in Yuuto. She's pretty sure he's not the type to do anything that would hurt her. To cheer her up, Rui throws out an invite to Mizuki to come over to her place for a get-together next year, so she won't be on her own. Plus, Rui's cousin, who's been studying overseas, just got back home. That's when Mizuki has a light bulb moment about Seiya, this super brainy woman who seems to know it all. Seiya is an archaeologist and has really made a name for herself. Mizuki bets that Seiya might have some clues about the world Yuuto's ended up in. Mizuki and Rui are heading towards Seiya's house. Seiya is interested in Mizuki's story about Yuuto, who was sent to the past. In order to know the details, Seiya asks Mizuki to tell the story thoroughly. And after listening to her story, Seiya will decide if he believes her story or not, even though Yuuto is now in the Bronze Age. Seiya cannot predict when and where he is exactly because Mizuki uses a lot of terms from Norse mythology, but some of them are different from the myths she knows. Mizuki nods, telling Rui that Yuuto had mentioned something similar, and there are these little details that really get her thinking. Like, Yuuto's got this nickname, the infamous Wolf Crossfitter, which is another way of saying Fenrir. And then there are these folks from the Lightning clan that seem to have a lot to do with Thor from the myths. However, Yuuto is really clever as he used this tactic called the river strategy to win his battles. Seiya, being the know-it-all that she is, chimes in with some cool mythological facts. She talks about this massive serpent, Jormungandr, which is said to have had some epic showdowns with Thor. When the end of the world, Ragnarok, rolls around in the legends, this serpent is supposed to cause massive flood. Then there's Yuudo's name, which starts with Suo and ends with 2. It's kind of interesting because Fenrir and Jormungandr are both key players in the Ragnarok stories. In those same stories, there's this huge, dark figure called the Black One who rides out leading a bunch of spells on horseback, crossing this rainbow bridge to take on Asgard. And this Black One, he's a flame giant who's destined to burn down all 9 worlds. Seiya's got this hunch that Yuudo might be a shortened form of certain. And then there's Mizuki, whose last name, Shimoya, kinda rings a bell with the name of Sif's wife, Sinmara, from the old tales. Mizuki's putting the pieces together, thinking that Yuudo's life is kind of mirroring the Norse myths. But Seiya's not totally buying it. She wonders if Yuudo might just be tweaking the original stories a bit. You see, Norse mythology is super old, like it started more than 1,000 years before Christianity came along. And since Yuudo's supposed to be from around 1500 years before that, he's way older than the myths themselves. Mizuki, she's getting a bit anxious about Yuudo because, in those ancient stories, Fenrir and Jormungandr don't exactly have happy endings. They both bite the dust when the tale wraps up, but Sei is there to comfort her. She points out that Yuudo's life isn't exactly a carbon copy of the myth, and nobody can predict the future. The thing about Norse myths is that they've been passed down by word of mouth, so who's to say what's the real deal? Sei is basically telling Mizuki to hang on to hope because, when it comes to legends and real life, you never know how things will turn out. Jumping back to the Bronze Age scene, Yuudo tries to reach Mizuki with a call, but she doesn't answer, which gets him pretty worried. At the same time, Felicia and the crew are busy putting together a cool cape just for Yuudo. Then Mizuki rings up Yuudo, and they have their usual chat on the phone. After their convo, Yuudo feels like taking a stroll under the night sky, mulling over what Mizuki told him about those old Norse stories. But to be honest, Yuudo's still scratching his head over the whole mythology thing. While he's out and about, Yuudo bumps into Christina and Albertina, and they decide to tag along. They head into a tavern, and as soon as Yuudo steps in, everyone there shows him major respect by kneeling down. Inside the tavern, Yuudo spots a girl who's the spitting image of Mizuki. This girl is actually the rightful queen of the Holy Asgard Empire. She's super important, known as the Divine Emperor Sigurdrifa. Later on, Yuudo decides to bring Sigdrifas over to his place. But here's the twist. Sigurdrifa is undercover, pretending to be one of the princesses from the powerful clan, which is one of the top 3 bigwig families in Asgard. Now, Felicia gets a glimpse of her and totally thinks she's Mizuki. It's a classic case of mistaken identity. The next morning, this girl, Lifa, wants to check out the workshop, but the guards are having none of it and don't let her in. Just as she's trying to figure out what to do, Yuudo shows up and explains that the workshop is off limits to folks from other clans. While all this is going down, Ingrid, who's in the workshop, hears the noise and comes out to see what's up, and Felicia joins her. Surprisingly, Ingrid also mistakes Lifa for Mizuki. Lifa's pretty stoked to finally meet Ingrid because she's a big name in crafting, and as it turns out, Lifa's actually one of their customers. However, Lifa can't help feeling surprised out that everyone keeps thinking she's Mizuki. And to top it off, Ingrid drops some bizarre comment about another world, which just adds to the weirdness of the whole situation. Yuudo spills the beans about how he's actually from a totally different place and ended up here during the Bronze Age because of this shiny mirror made from elven copper. Turns out, Felicia was doing her magic thing at the exact moment he got zapped over to this world. Lifa's in the loop about this fancy mirror since the Empire's been poking around it, trying to figure it out. But before she dives into the whole mirror mystery, Lifa tells them that she is hungry, and afterwards she goes on to demolish 3 hamburgers like it's nothing. With her hunger taken care of, she starts chatting about Felicia's spell-casting skills. Lifa's scratching her head, wondering how Felicia's not-so-strong magic managed to pull someone from another world when she can't even do that. Yuudo's just as baffled and throws a question mark over her magical abilities. But then, Lifa shows off her own magic and suddenly Yuudo can't move a muscle. Both he and Felicia are gobsmacked when they find out Lifa's got not 1, but 2 sigils. It's like she's got a secret power-up no one knew about. To Felicia's knowledge, there are only 2 people with 2 runes in Lightning Kingdom. Learning by the fact, Felicia suspects Lifa is the Divine Emperor Sigurdrifa. Lifa admits that she is the Divine Emperor Sigurdrifa. Felicia quickly drops to her knees and says sorry, and Yuudo follows suit. He's also itching to know if Lifa can lift the spell that's got him stuck. Lifa breaks it down for them, saying magic's got 2 flavors, the inside your head kind and the outside your head kind. The spell that's got Yuudo frozen is an inside job, and you need an outside trick to cancel it out. But here's the kicker, Lifa's not the best with the outside magic, so she can't help him out. She does mention it'll wear off after a week, though. Lifa also spills the beans about someone named Sagan who's got this thimble thing that can break any magical chain. Yuuto gets on the horn with his buddy Mizuki, telling her about Leafa, who's kind of like her but with a different look. He shares that if they can get their hands on that thimble magic from Leafa, he might be able to head back home. But bummer alert, Leafa's playing for the other team, which means Yuuto's gotta find another person with the same mojo as Sigadrift. Yuuto's finally caught on. The next morning, he and his friends are all talking about how the Lightning Clan took over Gashina Fortress. Yuuto figures he'll pull a sneaky move from Han Shin's book to trick the bad guys. He shares his plan with the gang. When the fight day rolls around, it's Lightning Clan versus Wolf Clan. Steinthur shows up at the fortress, and even though the Wolf Clan's trying to hit him with arrows, he just brushes it off with his cool new weapon. He's got this iron umbrella that stops all the arrows. He then hurls the umbrella, busts open the fort, and goes wild, taking out the Wolf Clan guys. Christina chimes in that the Lightning Clan's got iron weapons too. That's when Yuuto realizes they're buddies with the Panther Clan. But Yuuto's not worried. He's got a secret plan for the battle. Jalfi and his soldiers are backing up Steinthur. Steinthur runs into Sijin, and they start scrapping. Steinthur tells his second-in-command to take the soldiers and go ahead while he takes down Sijin. Just then, Christina drops more news. A huge army from the Panther Clan, like more than 10,000, is heading their way from the south, about to join the battle. Steinthur goes back into the fight and lands a hit on Sijin. But then Scarfir jumps in to back her up. They team up on Steinthur, but he's tough and figures out Scarfir's moves so he can handle them pretty well. Just as Sijin tries to sneak up and attack from behind, Steinthur snaps her spear in half. He's about to finish her off with his shattered weapon when Scarfir steps in to try and stop him. But Steinthur's too strong and Scarfir ends up getting knocked into a deep pit. While all that's going down, Sijin can't do anything but see Scarfir tumble down. She shakes it off and goes at Steinthur again. Meanwhile, Lopter's out there, pumping up his crew. He's all about getting even for the time the Wolf Clan beat them. He tells his army to go full throttle, and they jump out and surprise the Wolf Clan, which turns pretty bad for the Wolf Clan warriors. A bunch of them don't make it. That's when Yuuto steps in. He shows up and it's like he lights a fire under his team. It's like they're down, but seeing him there makes them ready to rumble again. Yuuto's all about getting them organized. He tells them to grab their spears, line up, and to put their defenses back up. Everyone's getting their game faces on and the battle's heating up again with a new energy. Felicia has this memory popping up about the time Yuuto is set on joining the battle right up front. And Yuuto says something about the Lightning Clan being super pumped because their leader, Steinthur, is out there leading them. It sounds kind of wild for Yuuto to just jump in, but he has this gut feeling that he can rally the troops and get them all on the same page. At the same time, Lopter is getting really ticked off and just blurts out an order to his soldiers to go after the big boss of the Wolf Clan, Siu Yuuto. The moment the Panther Clan's warriors catch wind of that, they are laser focused on getting Yuuto, and the cherry on top, they are promised this hefty reward if they manage to off him. So with that, they are all in, starting their hunt to take out Yuuto. On the other hand, Yuuto doesn't falter one bit, even though he is aware that they are targeting his life. On the contrary, he keeps ensuring his soldiers that victory is still on their side. Apart from that, the soldiers remember Yuuto's merit while being the patriarch of the clan. They can enjoy prosperity and honor. Moreover, the patriarch has made many innovations both in weapons and in cookery, so they can enjoy a variety of foods they have never known before. Yuuto also built a school so that their children can get educated. They can all enjoy thanks to Yuuto being the patriarch of the Wolf Clan. Therefore, the soldiers will not forget Yuuto's kindness to them. Thus, the soldiers will protect the hope of the Wolf Clan and won't let Yuuto fall into the enemy's hands. Yuuto is surprised he can make his soldiers feel brave, but Felicia isn't shocked at all because they see Yuuto as their hero. Meanwhile, Sijin is locked in a tough battle with Steinthur. Steinthur is really impressed when he sees Yuuto fighting on the front lines and rushes to join the action. Sijin's not entertaining him anymore, though. When Steinthur mocks her, she strikes back with her sword and actually wounds him. Just then, they hear that Muspel has taken over Fort Gashina. Yuuto seizes the moment and tells his soldiers it's time to win the fight. Back with Steinthur, he decides it's time to back off, especially because Sijin's attack has left him pretty hurt. But even as he's pulling back, Steinthur can't help but be wowed by Yuuto's fighting skills and clever moves. He realizes the leader of the Wolf Clan always has a new strategy up his sleeve. Steinthur is really taken aback by Sijin's powerful final move and wants to know who she is because of it. He then tells his troops it's time to pull back, making a way for them to get out safely, and he'll stay behind to keep the enemies busy. As Steinthur sends a shout out to Scarfir, Sijin's ears perk up. Her uncle is alive. She wastes no time and dashes off to find him. And when she does, he's out cold. Meanwhile, Yuuto is doing a great job dodging every attack from Lopter. Lopter can tell Yuuto's not the same as before. Yuuto admits he's been working really hard on his skills because he's tired of always being the one who needs saving. Even when Lopter knocks Yuuto's sword away, Yuuto isn't about to throw in the towel. He goes at Lopter with nothing but his fists, and believe it or not, it works. Lopter is caught off guard, tumbles down, and ends up knocked out cold, just like that. Felicia notices that Sijin is close by because Sijin starts chanting a spell called Thimble. This spell breaks the holy pact made by God, which weakens Yuuto. As a result, Yuuto's body starts to fade away slowly. But before he completely disappears, Yuuto always leaves his smartphone with Felicia. Lopter is carried away by his soldiers and leaves the scene. Felicia is left all alone, crying over Yuuto's disappearance. In the real world, Mizuki finally realizes that Yuuto has returned. Yuuto goes back to his home and reunites with Mizuki. Mizuki is so overjoyed to see Yuuto again after being apart for such a long time. They both feel incredibly grateful and relieved that they have finally been reunited. Yuuto's heartfelt wish to come back home has come true, all thanks to Satan's spell. To make sure everything is okay, Yuuto borrows Mizuki's phone and tries to call his own number, but it doesn't connect. He then tells Mizuki about his heroic feats of defeating the Lightning Clan and repulsing the Panther Clan in the Bronze Age. Meanwhile, Linnea receives news that the Lightning Clan and the Panther Clan have returned. Rasmus also shares the sad possibility that Yuuto might be dead. Linnea feels a deep sense of sorrow, but she's not entirely certain about this news. In Yuuto's world, he and Mizuki are enjoying a lovely picnic together. They soak in the beauty of the park while engaging in light-hearted conversation. Suddenly, Yuuto receives a call from Ingrid, and they finally have a chance to talk to each other. Felicia then informs Yuuto that they were unable to defend the Fort Gashina and have relocated to visit Lin. Yuuto has a heart-to-heart with Sijin and says sorry for leaving without warning. After they catch up on everything, they hang up. Later that night, Yuuto meets up with Mizuki. Turns out, Mizuki has asked for his help to return to Yggdrasil. Mizuki really wants to tag along with him, but Yuuto, without meaning to, tells her she can't come for some reasons. Mizuki doesn't give up, though. She tells Yuuto just how much she cares about him. Hearing this, Yuuto changes his mind and asks Mizuki if she'll marry him. He believes that while he couldn't ask a girlfriend to risk everything, he could ask his wife. Mizuki says yes to his proposal. With that, all the people of the Wolf Clan celebrate. Over in the Bronze Age, Mizuki is chatting with Lifa, while Sijin is thanking Felicia for bringing Yuuto to Yggdrasil. Thanks for watching till this long, my fellow men of culture. Don't forget to tell us about your favorite waifu from this anime and subscribe to the channel for more content.